do we have to do this, right?
Yeah, we do. It's important. Welcome to 4 Time with Myriad with Anna.
And Marta. Woo.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, let's talk about postpartum.
Yes.
What a topic. We thought we would take advantage of it just being Anna and I here chatting to talk about the discussion of postpartum and what it's like to work out postpartum, because we have had a lot of individuals at the gym recently have babies. We have people who are going to be having babies soon. And sometimes it's a topic we kind of shy away from. I think we don't always feel comfortable asking questions or talking to people about it.
Totally agree. And I think part of that is a lack of very specific training. Mm-hmm. So, I would say most of the coaches here have experience with working with individuals who've had babies, but not, we've only had one individual who's done a pretty dedicated course on postpartum fitness. And to only have worked with a handful of people is not the same as, very dedicated education on it. So I would say that's a huge part of it. And even, myself as someone who's had a child, I am N of 1. That's not a huge sample size. So I will speak from my experience, but I think the first thing I do want to say is if you are in that phase, talking to professionals, so your own clinician, your doctor, physician, as well as another big important person in this sphere is a pelvic floor physical therapist. That's another really awesome resource for people in that phase of life. So,
what do you feel like was one of the big hurdles that you had to overcome when coming back to the fitness space and working out? Because I think for some people that can be the biggest, taking that first step to come back into the gym can feel really hard.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really challenging is you've just gone through this really hard thing, birth, and now you're tired because you have a newborn who's probably waking up a lot, and after giving a long period of time to another person in the form of pregnancy, I think a lot of people want to get back to doing something for themselves. So there's this juxtaposition of it's been a really long time since you've worked out, and even longer since you've probably worked out normally. So I had to keep reminding myself, even though I was 6 or 8 or 10 weeks postpartum, it was really even longer time frame of me not doing things that I was used to doing. So, I stopped doing a lot of core movements when I was 20 weeks pregnant, and I stopped running around that time frame. I stopped rowing around that time frame. So there was not only, it had been a long time since I'd worked out at all, but it had been even longer since I did a lot of these movements getting back to it. So I think that's one thing to remind yourself of is it's not only that, postpartum period of since you had birth, but also your pregnancy fitness probably looked pretty different too.
That's a really good point. I haven't really thought about it that way before.
I had to keep reminding myself of that. So I don't think a lot of people think about it.
Yeah, you've gone through a lot of changes, not just since you've had the baby, but before that even.
Mm-hmm.
So you obviously have a baby. Maybe that's not obvious to everyone. Anna has a very
I do have a
cute
baby. She is very cute.
Yes. And how old is she now?
She is just over a year. Yeah.
So you're over a year postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
How is that possibly impacting your fitness now?
It still is affecting me for sure. I would say anytime I talk to women who have had children who are older than my daughter, the thing I ask the most is probably when do you get your core back? Because that has felt to me the most challenging thing to get back to. And I've heard people say 18 months, 2 years. So I think another learning curve for me was how long it takes to get back to feeling like yourself could be a pretty long period of time. It isn't just, they were 9 months in, 9 months out, you're going to feel like yourself. It can be a longer period of time. And there's some things that came back more comfortably for me. Like lifting weights has felt, pretty solid. I'm definitely not as strong, but I haven't been working at it as much. So there's also that factor. But my core is definitely one thing that's been really challenging. I give the example of pull-ups a lot. I was able to get back to doing some strict pull-ups fairly quickly. And now I can do sets of 3, 4, 5 pull-ups in a row strict. But I have a really hard time with kipping pull-ups still. And it's not necessarily the pulling strength that's the problem. It's that my core is not able to put me in the positions to do the swinging very well. So it's been really hard to get kipping pull-ups back in a way that, I thought I would, I guess.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't know what to expect. And there's certain things we might be like, this will come back very easily. And then you can be surprised.
Yeah, well, and I think I thought okay, once my strict pull-ups come back, my kipping pull-ups will come back, and they're not on the same trajectory by any means. Yeah.
I like what you said about the pull-ups came back fairly quickly. I remember doing the pull-up program a couple of times with you. It's we're both working on our pull-ups. But I'm curious too, on the flip side of things being hard, was there anything that surprised you that you came back and you're actually this doesn't feel as hard as I thought maybe it would?
Yeah, I think a number of body weight things, like pull-ups, push-ups, some of those types of things. And I would guess some of that was because those are certain, really the movements that I could do while pregnant, I felt very comfortable with. And I had been doing them kind of with a weight vest.
Yeah.
So they came back in perhaps a little bit stronger than some of the other things. Running. I didn't do a lot of running while I was pregnant, and running has still been a thing that's hard to come back to. I would also say my engine generally, while running hasn't felt the best, I do feel my cardiovascular, just getting my engine going, has come back better than I expected. So
I feel that's helpful to hear. Sometimes we think, I've had this really long break, I'll never get back in shape again, but the journey just looks a little bit different. It's not going to look the same as when you started fitness many years ago. And of course, it's going to be different depending on where you were when you got pregnant. But it's nice to know you don't just start at 0 again.
No, you definitely don't start back at 0, and certain things come back. And I think the other thing is it's definitely, progress is not a straight line, is another thing. There are certain days where something won't feel great, and then I'll do it a week or 2 later, and it feels okay. And being okay with making those adjustments and modifications, not holding yourself to a super strict linear progression, I think is a helpful reminder. And then also, I think recognizing what your priorities are generally. I would say a lot of the things that I've had a hard time with, I probably could be further along on my journey if I was prioritizing them. But to be perfectly honest, I probably take 3 classes a week and work out maybe 1 extra time on my own. And that's very different from before I was pregnant. So I think recognizing your priorities may shift after you've had a child too, and that's going to impact your timeline. So if I was back to working out 1 to 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, I'm sure I'd be farther along in some things than I am right now. But right now I'm prioritizing more work and time with my family, and that means that my progress in the gym's a little slower, and that's okay.
I love that. Priorities are allowed to shift with time.
Yeah.
You don't always have to maintain the same expectations all the time.
Totally.
I feel that's also a really great segue that when our priorities shift, sometimes we want to spend more time with our family or our new babies that we have around. And we do have something coming up at Myriad, which is really exciting. Time to give yourself a little bit of space to get some movement in, but also spend time with your baby. Parent and baby yoga, which you've attended with me before.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think about it?
I will first say that I was really nervous about it. So, having a newborn, it was my first baby, so I didn't know, I was still learning what she was like, and I think it was probably 6 or 8 weeks. She was probably 6 or 8 weeks old, so pretty small. And I was I'm going to go to this class. What if she starts crying? And I was a little bit nervous about it. And I think I texted you that day and was woo, what happens with this? And you're like, it's totally fine. And that was definitely the case. It's very much all the people there are moms or parents, and they get that sometimes the baby's going to cry, sometimes they're going to be crawling around, and you do what you can and you tend to your baby when you need to, and it's all great. So it's a super fun experience. I loved doing it with her, and hope I can do some with her now, even though she's like way more mobile, and it would probably be a lot more chasing than not.
Just be a different experience.
Yeah, but still fun.
Yeah, so just to wrap that up, for anyone who is interested, that'll be coming up soon in May. So anyone with a small baby, any size baby, just pop on in. We'll be sharing details about that soon. It'll be on Fridays at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So cool.
All right. Time, we did it.
Woo!